I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get played like this. Honestly, I've always been the cautious type, the guy who watches from the sidelines, not the one caught in some twisted mess. But that night, I remember every detail. My stomach was in knots, my palms so slick I had to wipe them on my jeans just to keep from trembling. We were finally about to say our vows, standing in that tiny, dimly lit church, my hands trembling slightly as she looked at me, her eyes shining with nerves and love. I was so wrapped up in that moment I barely noticed the world around us. The rehearsal dinner had gone smoothly enough, or at least that's what I told myself. My closest friends, her family, all laughing and joking, clinking glasses. I was nervous, sure, but that was normal. I was trying to memorize the vows I'd written, simple, heartfelt stuff. Then I saw her glance at her phone more than once. A flicker of something I couldn't quite catch, but it gnawed at me. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just nervous too. Later that evening, I stayed up practicing my vows in our hotel room. The soft hum of the city outside, the faint scent of the hotel shampoo in my hair, all that was supposed to be a moment of calm. Instead, I kept twisting my ring on my finger, trying to push away this strange feeling that something wasn't right. I still remember how cold my stomach felt when I caught her sneaking out of the room just as I was about to drift off. She said she needed some air, but I saw her slip her phone into her pocket and head down the hall. I didn't follow then. I was too scared to confront her, too caught up in the nervous energy of the day. But I kept watching her from the doorway. When she came back a while later, her face pinched, her eyes darting like she'd just seen a ghost. That's when I saw her hide her phone under the pillow, quick as a flash, before slipping into bed next to me. I should have asked her then, but I was too stunned. Instead, I just lay there trying to pretend everything was fine, telling myself it was probably just her nerves. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a rock. The hotel was quiet, the sun filtering through the curtains, casting golden patches on the bed. I reached over, my fingers brushing her shoulder, and she stirred. "Good morning," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile was a little too perfect, her eyes avoiding mine. "Morning," she whispered, sitting up quickly, smoothing her hair. I noticed her hands trembling slightly, but I chalked it up to the stress of the wedding day. We got ready, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. Somewhere deep inside, I knew the truth was waiting, ready to jump out and hit me in the gut. Then, out of nowhere, that gut instinct finally snapped. I decided to check her phone. It was a stupid move, I know, but I had to know. I unlocked it, and my stomach dropped. There were dozens of messages, texts, photos, even a few videos with the guy I used to call my best friend. They were all about sneaking off, planning trips, secrets I never imagined. I scrolled furiously, my fingers trembling, my chest tightening. The proof was right there on her screen, screenshots of hotel receipts, the dates matching every lie she'd told me. My mind went blank. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I was stunned, angry, feeling betrayed on every level. I had thought we were solid. I had believed in us. And now, all I wanted was to find her and get answers, answers I knew I wasn't going to like. I looked at her, still in the bathroom, and felt my fists clench so tight my nails cut into my palms. She came out singing some stupid pop song, trying to act normal. I caught her eye and knew I couldn't keep my mouth shut anymore. I needed to confront her. The quiet fury inside me grew sharper by the second. I clenched my jaw, my voice cold but steady. "Who the hell is that?" I asked, holding up her phone. Her face went pale and her eyes darted away. That's when I saw the flicker of guilt in her expression, the way her hands trembled harder now. She stammered something about just friends, but I didn't buy it. I could see the truth in her eyes. That was the moment I realized everything was over, our future, our trust, everything I'd believed in. I was standing in the ruins of what I thought was a perfect life. And I knew right then that I had to plan my revenge. No more waiting. Time to make her pay for the lies, for the betrayal. The question was how. I spent the rest of that day trying to keep it together. I was walking around in a storm inside my head, feeling like my chest was tight, my skin prickling with rage and hurt. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I thought I knew, but now she seemed like some stranger, someone I couldn't trust, someone who'd been lying to me for months behind my back. I kept telling myself I had to be calm, that I needed a plan, not just an outburst of raw emotion. But it was hard. Every breath I took felt like I was inhaling poison. I kept replaying that moment when I found her messages on her phone, the way my hands shook as I scrolled through the proof of her betrayal. It was undeniable now. She'd been sneaking around, lying, hiding her phone, every sign I'd ignored before, every red flag I'd brushed aside was staring at me in those texts. The hotel receipts, the late-night messages. I could see the whole charade in black and white. When she finally noticed I was trying to piece everything together, her face shifted into that familiar smile that I now saw was masking her guilt. "Can we just talk?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. I looked right at her and said, "There's nothing to talk about, not anymore." That was the truth. I was already calculating how to get out of this mess, how to make sure she paid for what she'd done. Later that night, I sat alone in the hotel room, staring at the wall. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't just going to storm out and yell. That wouldn't be enough. I needed something sharper, something that would hit her where it hurt. It was clear she'd been lying for months, possibly even longer. That meant I had to hit her with something she didn't see coming. I'd kept a few things tucked away just in case. Now they became my weapons. I remembered the hotel she'd left. On the bedside table that morning, still in her purse. I slipped it into my pocket, my secret weapon. I'd find out where she'd been going, who she'd been with. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to catch her in the act again, but this time with undeniable proof. I also made a decision. I was done being the nice guy. I wasn't going to give her a chance to spin some sob story or plead for forgiveness. No, I was going to show her that I was capable of doing just as much damage as she'd done to me, without breaking any laws, of course. Just enough to make her see that I wasn't someone to mess with. That night, I stayed awake, planning every detail. I would follow her tomorrow, see where she went after the wedding. I would check the hotel where she'd been sneaking off, see if she met up with him again. I'd find the truth, and then I'd make her regret ever crossing me. I had no illusions about getting her to confess. She'd deny, scream, cry, but I wasn't after apologies anymore. I was after her realizing I could do just as much. Damage when pushed. The hardest part was knowing I had to keep calm, act like I was just another clueless husband, while inside my mind was racing with plans. I remembered her coming to bed that night, trying to act innocent, her voice fake when she asked if I was upset. I just rolled over, pretending to sleep, but all I could think about was how to make her regret every lie she'd told. As I lay there, the hotel room silent except for my own breathing, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I had trusted her. Hell, I'd even defended her to my friends when they hinted she might be hiding something. And now I was planning to turn her world upside down, step by step. I didn't know what revenge would look like exactly yet, but I knew I'd stop at nothing to make her feel what it was like to be betrayed like this. Tomorrow, everything changed. I'd follow her, gather every piece of evidence I could find, and set my plan in motion. I'd make sure she knew she couldn't lie her way out of this. And when it was all over, when I finally confronted her with the full truth, I'd be the one walking away with my dignity intact, even if it meant burning everything to the ground first. That's what revenge looked like in my head right now, cold, calculated, and final. And I was ready to make her feel it. The morning hit like a punch to the gut. I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My head was pounding, and my stomach was twisting in knots. All I could see was her face when she caught me staring at her phone last night. That guilty flicker. The way her hands trembled when she was caught. Damn, I thought I knew her. Turns out I didn't know anything at all. I had my plan, though. I wasn't about to let her get away without paying. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her. The room was cold, and the early morning light spilled through the curtains, casting a pale glow on everything. I reached into my pocket, feeling the cold edge of the hotel I'd taken the night before. It was my ace, my way to track her movements without her noticing. Before I left the room, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I knew what I was about to do was risky, but I couldn't just sit still anymore. I had to know exactly where she went, who she saw, and how deep her betrayal ran. I grabbed my phone, looked up the hotel's address, and headed out into the hallway. The hotel was quiet, silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. I slipped into the elevator, heart pounding in my chest. When I reached the lobby, I kept my head low, pretending to be just another guest. I felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, that mix of fear and anticipation, as I stepped outside and started following her. She left the hotel about an hour later, her heels clicking on the pavement. She was heading to a nearby, and I trailed at a safe distance, making sure she didn't notice. My palms were slick with sweat and every second felt stretched out, like the world was holding its breath waiting for me to act. I didn't want to blow this. I had to be clever. She went into a small, cozy place, the kind with mismatched furniture and the smell of fresh coffee. That's when I saw her meet him. It was a guy I'd seen around a few times, someone I'd always thought was just a mutual acquaintance. Turns out they'd been more than that. She was sitting across from him, laughing that fake, rehearsed smile, but her eyes were darting around like she was trying to hide something. He looked just as tense, trying to keep his cool. I watched them for a few minutes, catching snippets of their conversation. She leaned in close, her hand resting on the table, and I saw her slip something into his palm. A folded piece of paper, maybe a phone number or some kind of secret. My stomach clenched hard. That was the proof I needed. I kept my distance, trying to decide what to do next. I wasn't planning to storm in there and scream. That wouldn't be smart. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures, clear, undeniable evidence of her lies. The way her hand touched him, the look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. That was her real face, the one that betrayed her. While I was doing this, my mind was racing. I knew I had to be careful now. If I confronted her too soon, she'd deny everything. I needed to gather more proof, something more concrete than just a few pictures. I wanted her to realize I wasn't bluffing. That's when I remembered the hotel in my pocket. I could use that to find out where she'd been going, who she'd been with. I wanted to see her in her element, sneaking around behind my back. I stayed in the shadows, watching her finish her coffee, then stand up. She looked around nervously, as if trying to see if anyone was watching her. That was when I saw her slip her phone into her purse, along with a folded note. She said goodbye to him hurriedly and left. I followed at a distance, heart hammering again, knowing I was inching closer to the truth. Back at the hotel, I slipped into the lock of her room, my stomach twisted with anticipation. I was about to find out her secrets, no matter what. The door swung open quietly and I stepped inside. The room was silent, but I knew she'd been there. Her scent still lingered on the pillow, a faint trace of her perfume. I checked the bathroom, the closet, everywhere. Nothing seemed out of place, yet then I found it, hidden behind her clothes, tucked into a shoe. A small, crumpled receipt from a different hotel, one I didn't recognize. The date was from the night before. That confirmed my suspicion. She'd been sneaking off, lying about where she was, and probably meeting him more times than I could count. This was the proof I needed. Everything was falling into place. I sat on the bed for a moment, feeling a strange mixture of triumph and fury. I had what I needed now. The game was on. I had the evidence. I knew where she'd been. I knew she'd been lying, cheating, planning her next move. It was time to expose her. When she walked through that door, I was going to confront her with everything I'd uncovered. And I'd be ready to end this once and for all. Are you ready for the next part? That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, going over everything I'd found, trying to piece together her entire betrayal. Every detail, every message, every secret note, all of it added up to one thing. She'd been lying to my face for months. That feeling of betrayal was a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. My jaw ached from clenching it so tight, and my palms were still slick with sweat from all the adrenaline. It was clear I had to act, but I wasn't just planning a confrontation. I needed to make her regret every lie, every moment of insecurity she'd caused. By morning, I'd crafted a plan. I knew her routines, her habits, her weak spots. I knew she'd be at the hotel, probably trying to cover her tracks. I'd follow her, but I wasn't going to just show up and accuse her outright. No, I wanted her to feel the pressure mounting, to realize she couldn't hide from what I knew. I'd leave her a trail she couldn't deny. I slipped out early, again using that hotel to access her room. I left her a note on the pillow, simple but pointed. I know everything. Don't come home until I say so. I didn't want to tip her off that I was onto her just yet, but I needed Her to think she was safe, to let her think she had some control. That was part of the game, making her believe she was winning, only to trap her later. Next, I followed her to the same. She was more tense today, constantly looking over her shoulder. Her eyes were darting around, and her hand kept clutching her purse like she was afraid someone might take it. She sat alone for a minute, then pulled out her phone, typing furiously. I could see the glow of the screen from a distance, more messages, more lies. I snapped a few photos again, feeling that rush of satisfaction mixed with pure anger. Then she left, heading back toward the hotel. I kept my distance, waiting for her to slip into her room again. When she did, I slipped in behind her, careful to stay quiet. Inside, I saw her hurriedly packing a small bag. That's when I knew she was planning to run, probably to meet him somewhere else, maybe to escape or hide. My stomach clenched, this was it. I slipped my phone into my pocket and made a quick call to a friend who owed me a favor. I told him to meet me at the hotel lobby in 10 minutes. While I waited, I kept observing her, watching her packing, her nervous glances at the clock. I knew she was desperate to cover her tracks, but she didn't realize I was one step ahead. When my friend arrived, I handed him the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the hotel receipts, the notes. I told him to file everything with the hotel management, show them the proof of her sneaking around, the times she'd been at other places, her lies. I wanted her to wake up to the fact that her secret life was no longer secret. Then I did what I'd been planning all along. I called her. Her phone rang twice, then she answered with a shaky voice. "Hey, I'm just packing. I'll be out later," she said, trying to sound normal. "Yeah," I replied, voice cold. "You should be aware, I've already told a few people about your little secret. The hotel managers got the receipts, and I've handed over everything to the authorities. You're not going anywhere until we talk, and I mean talk." Her breath hitched and I heard her swallow hard. "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying." "Oh, you do," I said. "You've been lying to me, sneaking around with my best friend. You think you can hide it forever. Well, guess what? Your lies are about to blow up in your face. You aren't walking out that door until I say so." There was silence on the line, then her voice cracked. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Just give me some time, I'll explain." I didn't bother arguing, I just told her no. "You're going to stay put and we're going to fix this, but not together. You lost me a long time ago." I hung up before she could say another word, feeling a strange relief. She was trapped now, caught in her own web of lies. I met my friend in the lobby, gave him a nod, and told him to handle everything. My stomach was still churning, but I felt a strange sense of calm. I'd done what I needed to do, expose her, take away her control, and force her into a corner. That night I went back to the hotel, grabbed her keys from where I'd hidden them, and took her car. I left them on the front desk of her apartment building with a note. "This is over. Don't come looking for me." I didn't just want her to feel betrayed. I wanted her to feel helpless, like she'd lost everything she tried to hide. Sitting in my own apartment now, I can't say I feel victorious, but I do feel like I finally took control again. She's finally facing the fallout of her lies, and I'm free from the weight of her deception. Sometimes, when the betrayal is so complete, the only thing you can do is cut it out and move on. And that's exactly what I plan to do. The days that followed were a blur of cold mornings and restless nights. My mind kept replaying that scene, her hurried packing, her desperate attempts to call me, the way her voice cracked when she begged for more time. Honestly, I felt nothing but a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd spent so long building this fantasy of us, and now that it was shattered, I didn't know who I was anymore. But one thing was clear: I had finally taken control. And I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. I kept busy, but every so often I'd catch myself thinking about her, about the lies, the sneaking around, the secret meetings. I wasn't the kind of guy who wanted revenge just to hurt. No, I wanted her to understand she'd crossed a line from which there was no return. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, every ounce of it, just as I had. I remember sitting on my couch, clutching a glass of whiskey when the phone buzzed. I didn't even need to look, I knew who it was. Her name flashed across the screen and I hesitated for a moment. A tiny part of me still wondered if she'd try to reach out, to apologize, maybe plead for forgiveness, but I knew better. I picked up and pressed the phone to my ear. "Listen," I said, voice steady but cold. "You've caused enough damage, stay away from me. I won't be allowing any more lies or games. Whatever you're planning, I suggest you forget about it. You lost that right. I just want to talk, she whispered, voice trembling. Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was scared and I made a mistake. Can't we just stop? I cut her off sharply. You don't get to explain or justify anything anymore. You had your chance and you threw it away. The only thing I want now is for you to stay out of my life. No calls, no texts, no visits. If you try to contact me again, I'll take it as harassment. Silence on the line. I could almost hear her swallowing hard, her breath catching. Then she muttered something I didn't catch about how she'd try to fix things. I just hung up, feeling a strange kind of finality. It was over, or at least that's what I told myself. But even as I tried to move on, I couldn't completely shake the feeling that she'd never really let go. I kept seeing her face in my mind's eye, her pleading, her guilt. And I knew her shame was just beginning. I had handed her the keys to her own downfall. Now she'd be dealing with the fallout, whether she liked it or not. A week later, I walked into my apartment and saw a small box on my doorstep, no return address. My stomach sank. I hesitated, then slowly picked it up. Inside, wrapped in crumpled paper, was a USB drive. Attached was a note, just one line, for the truth. My heart clenched and I felt a flicker of something dark, curiosity mixed with a surge of anger. I plugged it into my laptop that night. Files opened up, photos, videos, messages, the full extent of her deception. There were recordings of her talking about plans, innocent-looking texts that suddenly took on a sinister tone. She'd been recording her own lies, perhaps to keep herself safe, or maybe just to have proof she'd control the situation. Whatever her reason, I now had the ammunition I needed to be done for good. I sat back, staring at the screen. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the evidence, feeling the weight of each betrayal. It wasn't just about the cheating anymore. It was about her trying to manipulate and hide behind more lies. I realized that this wasn't just revenge. It was justice. The next morning, I made one last move. I called my lawyer and told him to prepare the necessary paperwork. I was done hiding behind the facade of civility. It was time to finalize my separation, to get everything legally sorted so she couldn't come back and try to spin her lies again. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some sucker she could walk all over. I handed over the evidence to my lawyer, then went to the bank. I transferred all the shared accounts into my name, reset passwords, and changed the locks. I even took the liberty of returning her keys and the USB drive, leaving everything in a sealed envelope on her apartment doorstep. I didn't leave a note this time. I figured she'd get the message. That moment was surprisingly cold, almost freeing. I realized I had finally taken back control of my life. I'd faced the betrayal head-on and come out the other side. I don't think I'll ever forget what she did, but I refuse to let it define me. Sometimes the best revenge is just walking away, knowing you're finally free from the sickening grip of lies. Now I focus on healing, on rebuilding. No more secrets, no more lies, just honesty and the hope of better days. Because honestly, if she could betray me that deeply, I deserve someone who won't make me doubt every moment we share. That's my takeaway. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. So don't ignore the signs, or you might find yourself alone, rebuilding from the ashes. In the weeks that followed, I kept my distance from everything that reminded me of her. The house felt emptier than I remembered, but somehow it was also lighter. No more sneaking around, no more lies, just a quiet space to breathe and reflect. I started picking up the pieces of my life, piece by piece. I got rid of her things, deleted all the messages, and intentionally avoided any social media that might show her face. It was about rebuilding trust, trust in myself, in my judgment, in the idea that I could survive this betrayal. One day, I finally sat down and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw the scars of what I'd been through, jagged, ugly, but healing. I realized I'd been given a brutal lesson in honesty and betrayal, but also in resilience. I never thought I'd come out of something like this stronger. Somehow, I did. It wasn't because I was better or smarter, it was because I refused to let her destroy me completely. I remember thinking about how naive I'd been, how I'd believed in the fairy tale version of happily ever after. That illusion shattered, but I learned that it was better to be alone than to be with someone who didn't truly value me. Trust is built over time, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. The truth is, I don't regret what I did, not the revenge, not the heartbreak. It was necessary. It was my way of reclaiming myself. Looking back now, I see that her betrayal was a gift of sorts. It forced me to stop pretending everything was okay. It pushed me to confront my own strength, to realize I didn't need her validation or her lies to define me. I found that I was capable of more than I ever thought, more resilience, more grit. The process wasn't easy, and it sure as hell wasn't painless. But it was worth it. Now, I focus on rebuilding my trust in people who matter, friends, family, myself. I've learned to listen to that quiet voice inside that warns me when something isn't right. I no longer ignore the red flags because I've seen how dangerous they can be. I've also learned that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about self-preservation and reclaiming your dignity. I didn't need to hurt her to move on. I just needed to make sure she understood she'd lost the right to hurt me anymore. In the end, I'm left with one clear truth. Sometimes the best way to heal is to cut out what's toxic and walk away. No explanations, no second chances, just a clean break and the resolve to start fresh. I won't pretend I'm over it overnight, but I am moving forward. So, to anyone reading this who's been betrayed or hurt, know that you're not alone and you're stronger than you think. Trust is fragile, and once shattered, it's hard to put back together, but you can rebuild. You can walk away from the lies and find your peace again. The pain will fade and the scars will serve as a reminder. I survived and I'm better because of it. And that, in the end, is what matters most.